October 29th is the date you said, right? So we all need to be bracing for everything. Maybe Halloween won't go the way we thought.
Definitely makes it technological. For example, we can see that it maneuvers in ways that rocks do not. We can see some artificial lights coming from it, or we can detect a radio signal from it. You know, there are all kinds of ways by which you realize something is technological. We haven't seen that yet. But we need to look at it, and it will be closest to Earth actually on December 19th, which is just the week before Christmas. I hope it will not ruin any holiday events. So that's when we should get as much data about it from Earth. And then on March 16th, 2026, it will come closest to Jupiter. It came very close to Mars. By very close, I mean relative to the size of the solar system. And very close to, it will come very close to Jupiter. And these are features that we also didn't expect, because if it were to arrive at a random time, you know, it wouldn't come so close to these planets. They move around the sun over periods of years, and why would it be at the right time, at the right place to be so close to them? And that was perhaps another signature of planning or fine-tuning of its arrival.
Right now, 3I Atlas is streaking toward the sun, and new data suggests it's breaking all the rules. First, it sprouted a bizarre backward-facing tail that pointed toward the sun instead of away, only for that tail to suddenly flip direction in September 2025, as if the object hit the brakes mid-space. As if that weren't enough, 3I Atlas is spewing a chemical gas never seen in nature, a compound called nickel tetracarbonyl that until now was known only from industrial processes here on Earth. Each new observation has arrived like a plot twist, leaving scientists scrambling for answers. What if the strange anti-tail wasn't a coincidence at all, but a controlled braking maneuver by an alien craft? Loeb and his colleagues note that the anti-tail's dramatic flip near the sun would make perfect sense if 3I Atlas were a spacecraft slowing down, essentially using a braking thrust before settling into our solar system. In a recent paper, Loeb even described 3I Atlas as a potentially controlled maneuvering alien craft, a once-in-an-eon black swan event for humanity. He's hinted that this object might be a cosmic Trojan horse, a visitor that looks like a comet but could be hiding advanced technology within. It's a sensational claim, and it has ignited a firestorm of debate in the scientific community. He has now even urged people to take vacations before October 29, the day 3I Atlas reached its closest approach to the sun, hinting that something game-changing might be afoot. Why the urgency? Because as this mysterious object swung behind the sun, Loeb speculated it could be performing a hidden maneuver, perhaps using the sun's gravity to change course or even prepare for a rendezvous with Earth, a scenario he ominously described as potentially dire for humanity. NASA, for its part, still insists there's nothing to worry about. To them, 3I Atlas looks like a comet and behaves like a comet, with overwhelming evidence that it's a natural body. But after saying that, NASA has been completely silent on this. Shouldn't a comet that is defying almost every logical explanation be the #1 priority of NASA, as millions are looking for answers from the very agency that's supposed to be transparent on this subject? Are they silent for a reason? This story could be the most significant and overlooked scientific mystery of the decade. 3I/Atlas is the largest and fastest interstellar visitor ever seen. Estimates suggest it spans about 5.6 kilometers across, roughly the size of Manhattan Island in diameter. For comparison, the first interstellar object Oumuamua was at most a few hundred meters long, and Borisov was a couple of kilometers wide. 3I/Atlas absolutely dwarfs them. Its speed is equally jaw-dropping, about 130,000 miles per hour, nearly 60 kilometers per second, as it zipped near the sun. That's the highest velocity ever recorded for a solar system visitor, fast enough to travel from Earth to the Moon in just over an hour. This extreme speed and size hint at an object potentially forged in some far-off star system under very different conditions than those in our solar neighborhood. When scientists calculated its orbit, they found another surprise. 3I over Atlas is eerily well aligned with the plane of our solar system, the ecliptic. It's tilted only about 5 degrees off the Earth's orbital plane. In other words, this interstellar nomad just happened to be cruising along almost the same flat disk where our planets orbit. The odds of a random interstellar comet aligning so closely with our planetary plane are extremely low. Loeb's team calculated a chance on the order of 0.2% or less. Coincidence? Possibly. Or, as Avi Loeb wonders, is it by design? Here's why that alignment raised eyebrows. If you were an intelligent visitor wanting to tour a star system, the ecliptic plane is exactly where you'd go. All the major planets and interesting targets like Earth lie roughly along that plane. And indeed, 3I over Atlas's trajectory brought it on a path that swooped near several planets. By late 2025, it had already passed relatively close to Mars and Venus, and it was on track to cross near Jupiter in the coming months. In fact, as it reaches its closest point to the Sun, perihelion, on October 29, 2025, it is almost directly on the opposite side of the Sun from Earth, effectively hidden from our direct view. To some, these might be just fluky orbital dynamics, but to Loeb and colleagues, they form a pattern. 3I over Atlas's journey looks fine-tuned to explore the inner solar system while avoiding easy detection. It's as if an interstellar tourist plotted a course to check out the neighborhood, swing by Mars, take a peek at Venus, maybe use Jupiter's gravity, all while using the Sun as camouflage at critical moments. Even mainstream astronomers admit is a curious outlier. Most comets we know come from our own Oort cloud and tend to appear at random inclinations, often far off the ecliptic. But this one came screaming in almost like it belonged here. It's also possibly ancient. Simulations suggest it might originate from the Milky Way's thin disk region, up to 10 billion years old, meaning it could carry material or secrets from the early galaxy. Astronomers around the globe pointed every available telescope at it to glean as much as possible during its brief visit, and what they found only deepened the mystery. If 3I-ATL were just a garden-variety comet from another star, we'd expect it to behave mostly like the comets we know. Initially, it did exhibit a coma, a fuzzy cloud of gas and dust forming as sunlight warmed its surface. But as data rolled in, a slew of anomalies emerged that set 3I-ATL apart from any typical comet. These oddities form the crux of what we might call Loeb's interstellar conspiracy, the evidence fueling speculation of an artificial origin. Looking at this list, you can see why Avi Loeb and a segment of the scientific community are electrified. Any one of these oddities alone might be explained away, but the combination of so many low-probability anomalies in one object feels like a cosmic conspiracy. Loeb himself put it bluntly. Given the combined improbabilities of these features, it makes sense to deploy all observational assets on Earth and in space to study 3I Atlas in detail. In other words, we'd be foolish not to investigate aggressively, because if by some chance this really is an alien craft or probe, the stakes are enormous. Loeb is also willing to entertain an alternative interpretation. What if that sunward jet was literally a jet, as in a rocket burn? Enter Loeb's colleague Adam Hibbard, an astrodynamics expert. Hibbard pointed out a tantalizing scenario. If the object is an alien spacecraft slowing down and the antitail is breaking thrust, then this change from antitail to tail would be entirely expected near perihelion. Think about it. A spacecraft that wants to decelerate and perhaps enter orbit around the Sun would likely fire its engines forward toward its direction of motion, which from our perspective would eject propellant in a sunward direction. That exhaust plume could look just like a cometary antitail. Then, once the craft achieved its desired speed and orbit by perihelion, it could cut off the thrust. The forward jet would disappear, and any remaining outgassing or venting might then just drift back like a normal comet tail. Loeb calls this hypothetical signature a technosignature, an unexpected phenomenon indicative of controlled maneuvering. In essence, the anti-tail transitioning to a tail might be the smoke from an alien spacecraft hitting the brakes. It sounds fantastical, but it fits oddly well with the timing. 3I Atlas's anti-tail was strongest when it was farther out, July-August 2025. And then, as it neared perihelion, late September 2025, the sunward jet faded and a normal tail grew. If it were a ship, perihelion would be the optimal point to finish your deceleration burn, when the sun's gravity is bending your trajectory the most. This is akin to a reverse Oberth maneuver, using the sun's gravity well to efficiently slow down and stay bound in the solar system. Interestingly, Loeb's initial analysis noted that 3I Atlas's perihelion on the far side of the sun was the perfect spot for a spacecraft to use the sun's gravity to its advantage. It's like slamming the brakes at the last possible moment and entering a parking orbit around the sun, between Mars and Jupiter, exactly what Hibberd mused the object might be doing. Is there direct evidence of a controlled deceleration? Not conclusively. We didn't, for example, track any sudden changes in velocity beyond what the gravity and outgassing explain. More on that later. But the mere fact that this comet had a forward-facing jet and then switched to normal behavior gave a lot of people goosebumps. It's one of those, if it were a spacecraft, that's exactly what we'd expect to see moments. Loeb himself wrote that if post-perihelion observations end up showing nothing but ordinary cometary behavior under intense solar heating, he'd downgrade the likelihood of an artificial origin. On his personal scale of weirdness, he calls the Loeb scale. However, he still wouldn't drop it to 0 because the enormously larger mass of 3I Atlas relative to 1I Oumuamua and 2I Borisov and its fine-tuned orbital alignment with the ecliptic plane will never go away. In other words, even if the anti-tail can be explained naturally, the case isn't closed for him due to those other coincidences. For now, mainstream comet scientists view the anti-tail as an interesting but natural effect, an interplay of dust and geometry. But Loeb and Hibberd's engine thrust hypothesis is out there, adding an extra layer of intrigue. It's a classic example of two interpretations of the same data. One follows known physics of comets, the other wonders about new physics, or technology. To truly tell the difference, we'd need more data, high-resolution images, or in-situ measurements, which, frustratingly, we don't have yet. NASA's high-rise camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter actually snapped photos of 3I Atlas from Mars on Oct. 2, 2025, which could help distinguish a narrow jet versus diffuse dust, but as of late October, they hadn't been released due to a U.S. government shutdown. So the nature of the anti-tail remains a bit of a cliffhanger. Before we venture into the truly speculative implications of all this, let's summarize what we have so far in simpler terms. 3I Atlas is a big, fast interstellar object that behaves mostly like a comet, but with a strangely perfect orbit, a weird forward-facing jet, and an unusual chemical fingerprint. Lots of CO2, not much H2O, and an inexplicable nickel alloy signature. These facts alone do not prove its alien technology, but they sure have people talking. Now, let's talk about Avi Loeb, the man at the center of this, and his warnings, as well as how the rest of the scientific community and agencies like NASA are responding. Avi Loeb is no stranger to controversy. As a respected theoretical astrophysicist and former chair of Harvard's astronomy department, he made waves in 2018 by suggesting that the first interstellar object, Oumuamua, might have been an alien light sail or probe. Many of his peers were skeptical, some outright ridiculed the idea. But Loeb doubled down, writing a bestseller Extraterrestrial about it and co-founding the Galileo Project, an initiative to systematically search for evidence of extraterrestrial technologies. Fast forward to 2025, and here comes 3I Atlas, bigger, weirder, and with just enough anomalies to make Loeb say, could this be it? It's as if the cosmos handed him a sequel, Extraterrestrial 2, The Interstellar Conspiracy. Loeb has been remarkably vocal about 3I Atlas in public forums, media interviews, and blog posts. He's careful to frame some of his statements as hypothetical, a kind of devil's advocate exercise, but he clearly believes it's a hypothesis worth serious consideration. Here are some key points Loeb has been making. This could be a black swan event. Loeb refers to 3I Atlas as a potential black swan, an event that is extremely rare and unexpected, but has huge impact if true. The term implies we shouldn't dismiss it just because it's extraordinary. He warns that something that looks natural at first ends up being like a Trojan horse. In other words, an alien craft masquerading as a comet. Because the implications are so huge for humanity, we must consider it seriously, Loeb urges. To him, even a small chance that 3I Atlas is artificial justifies intense scrutiny, since confirming alien technology would be a civilization-changing discovery, or, in the worst case, a civilization-threatening one. Interstellar blind date analogy. In one interview, Loeb quipped that meeting an object like this is like going on a blind date with the cosmos. You often assume the dating partner would be very friendly, but you have to worry about serial killers as well, he joked. In this colorful analogy, we Earthlings are meeting an interstellar stranger. Optimism is fine, but prudence says we can't rule out danger. This captures Loeb's balanced showmanship. He injects a bit of humor while making a serious point about not being naive. Suspicion of withheld data. Loeb has hinted that NASA and other agencies might be sluggish or even secretive in releasing information about 3I Atlas. For instance, NASA's Mars orbiter took high-resolution images of the comet when it passed about 12 million miles from Mars in early October. As of late October, those images hadn't been published, partly due to a government shutdown. Loeb insinuated that NASA may be withholding critical information and lamented that the public deserves to see the data promptly. Who cares about the communication departments? We want to see the data from the scientists, he said, pressing for transparency. This somewhat conspiratorial tone, implying that perhaps startling images or spectra are being held back, has resonated with some in the online community, who are naturally distrustful or just excited. NASA, for its part, denies any suppression. They emphasize that processing and analyzing data takes time, and nothing so far has indicated anything other than a comet. The delay in images is likely bureaucratic, not sinister. But in the era of UAP secrecy debates, Loeb's pro-transparency stance finds a sympathetic audience. Concern over size and intent. Loeb has repeatedly highlighted how unprecedentedly massive 3I Atlas is, and openly asked why we're seeing such a big one now. He notes it's at least 1,000 times more massive than Oumuamua and Borisov, almost like comparing a battleship to a couple of rowboats. This leads him to speculate, was it sent intentionally because of its size? He even floated the idea, in an academic paper and the press, that 3I Atlas might perform a gravity-assisted maneuver around the Sun to adjust its trajectory, and we wouldn't see it do so because it's behind the Sun at perihelion. From there, he mused about a malign intent scenario. What if it changed course toward Earth? That sounds alarmist, and it is. But Loeb couched it as a thought experiment highlighting how little control we'd have if an advanced craft did decide to head our way. The consequences, should the hypothesis turn out to be correct, could potentially be dire for humanity and would possibly require defensive measures, though these might prove futile, he and co-authors wrote in their summer 2025 paper. It's a grim scenario, essentially the plot of an alien invasion movie, except discussed in a scientific paper. It's important to note that Loeb does not claim he's certain 3I/Atlas is artificial. He acknowledges the simplest hypothesis is that 3I Atlas is a comet and says he's raising the alternative possibilities as an exercise in challenging preconceived ideas. He argues that science needs open-mindedness. Let us maintain our childhood curiosity and seek evidence rather than pretend to be the adults in the room that know the answers in advance, he wrote. So, he's essentially saying, I'm not claiming it's aliens, but I'm not ruling it out either. Let's investigate without bias. This has been his philosophy since Oumuamua. Keep an open mind, gather evidence, don't dismiss the unusual out of hand. NASA and most astronomers, on the other hand, have been playing the role of the calm adults in this story. They point out that all of 3I Atlas's observed behaviors can be explained naturally, maybe not usually seen in one package, but nothing breaks the laws of physics or definitively cries technology. Tom Statler, NASA's lead for small bodies, summarized the agency's view. It looks like a comet. It does comet things. The evidence is overwhelmingly pointing to this object being a natural body. It's a comet. He and others note that comets are by their nature a bit unpredictable. They can have outbursts or weird tails. Each one has its quirks. From NASA's perspective, 3I Atlas poses no threat to Earth. It won't come closer than about 170 million miles and is on its way out after this loop. They see it as a fantastic opportunity to learn about the building blocks of another star system, not an alien spaceship. In fact, NASA and other space agencies have been intensely studying 3I Atlas with every tool available: Hubble, JWST, ground observatories, even spacecraft like ESA's ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, which caught a glimpse from Mars' orbit. It's not as though they're ignoring it, quite the opposite. They're thrilled scientifically. They just aren't seeing signs of ET in the data as of now. Meanwhile, other researchers have put forth normal explanations. A Spain team, for example, ran simulations of 3I Atlas's trajectory through the galaxy and found plausible stellar encounters that could have sent it our way. With no need for aliens meddling, they suggest it likely came from an old star system in the galactic disk and has been wandering for eons, which to them explains its age and perhaps its dry composition. Their conclusion? It's a natural relic, offering a peek at ancient planetary material, not a spaceship. So we have this fascinating split screen: Loeb waving the what-if flag and urging vigilance, and the mainstream emphasizing evidence of natural behavior. The good news is, both sides agree on one thing: we should gather as much data as possible on 3I Atlas while we can, because whatever it is, it's valuable. And that leads us to what humanity might do about these interstellar visitors in the future. One lesson from Oumuamua and now 3I Atlas is that we've entered a new era. We're starting to catch wanderers from other stars. They've probably been passing through our solar system for billions of years undetected, but only now do we have telescopes and surveys, like Pan-STARRS and Atlas, capable of finding them. It's a revolution in astronomy. Avi Loeb calls it the scientific revolution of interstellar objects, an opportunity to literally touch the stars, or at least their debris, without leaving home. But if one of these isn't just debris, if one is a probe or craft, then we could be missing the boat, or the spaceship as it were. Loeb argues that we should be proactive. In a recent essay, he outlined how interstellar objects could transform science and even defense planning. Perhaps his most striking suggestion, deploying a fleet of space telescopes and even interceptor spacecraft in the outer solar system as an alert system for alien technology. Think of it as an early warning and rapid response network. If we had observatories stationed near Jupiter or Saturn, for example, they could catch interstellar objects inbound much sooner than our Earth-based telescopes, giving us time to react. And by react, Loeb means possibly sending a probe or interceptor to closely investigate or even rendezvous with the object. In his view, the first confirmed alien tech would be the discovery of the millennium, worth mobilizing significant resources. He even mused that the financial scale might be justified to be huge, on the order of the global military budget, because the implications of the first encounter with alien technology are so profound. In short, spend big, be ready, because you don't want to miss it if an alien craft shows up. Now that's a long-term vision. What's happening right now? Interestingly, 3I Atlas has prompted something unprecedented. The International Asteroid Warning Network, IAWN, which usually coordinates observations of potentially dangerous asteroids, has launched a special campaign to observe 3I Atlas intensively. This is the first time a global planetary defense network has targeted an interstellar object. Starting in late November 2025, telescopes worldwide will systematically track 3I Atlas's position, trajectory, and behavior through early 2026. The goal is partly to improve techniques, treat it as a drill for a possible future threat, and partly to squeeze out every bit of data, astronomy, composition, etc. during its departure. Loeb is supportive of this, of course. He's quoted saying, "Interstellar objects could pose a threat to humanity if they carry alien technology. Planning and observation are crucial for mitigation and understanding." The fact that planetary defense folks, those who usually worry about asteroid impacts, are paying such attention shows how 3I Atlas blurs boundaries. It's not on a collision course at all, yet it's being treated with the seriousness of a hazard or at least a high-value target. We're basically practicing, what if one day an interstellar object isn't so benign? In terms of interception, as of now we had no spacecraft ready to chase 3I Atlas. It came and went too quickly. By the time of discovery, even our fastest probes couldn't catch up without a decade of lead time or a fortuitous alignment. There was an analysis that if we had repurposed NASA's Juno spacecraft around Jupiter, and if Juno had enough fuel, it might just have been able to redirect to intercept 3I Atlas at Jupiter, a very hypothetical scenario. That didn't happen, of course. However, this shines light on the need for future rapid response missions. Some experts have proposed Project Lyra, a concept to send a fast probe to catch up with interstellar objects using advanced propulsion. ESA, the European Space Agency, is launching a comet interceptor mission in the late 2020s, designed to wait in space and fly by a randomly discovered comet, maybe even an interstellar one if we're lucky. These are steps toward being able to literally visit an interstellar visitor next time. Loeb goes even further to say maybe we need multiple space sentinels out there, ready to launch or divert when something like 3I Atlas appears. It's a bit like having a firefighter team on standby for cosmic fires. Even if 99 out of 100 turn out to be false alarms, natural comets, that one time it's a UFO, we'd be really glad we were prepared. His Galileo project is also working on small satellites to monitor weird objects and specialized sensors to detect any potential signals. As of the latest, no radio or other signals have been detected from 3I Atlas. It's not emitting anything obviously artificial like communications or propulsion energy that we can perceive. But the watch isn't over. Scientists will be monitoring it especially around December 19, 2025, when 3I Atlas makes its closest approach to Earth, still tens of millions of miles away. Post-perihelion, after roasting near the sun, if it behaves like a normal comet with no surprises, that will tilt the evidence more towards natural. If something unexpected happens, say it survives in an odd way or changes course slightly or emits an unusual burst, the alien theory will gain more weight. Loeb half-joked that his flamboyant warning to take vacation by October 29 might align with new data that could drop around that time. Nothing earth-shattering happened at perihelion to our knowledge, aside from the expected increase in outgassing, but we are still awaiting detailed results from that period. Remember, we haven't even seen the Mars orbiter images yet. It's a suspenseful time in planetary science. Everyone's eager to see how 3I Atlas behaves as it heads back out. Will it quietly fade like a regular comet, or will it do something that defies expectations? A bit of context helps us appreciate how extraordinary 3I Atlas is. With Oumuamua 1I in 2017, we had essentially no warning. It was discovered on its way out of the solar system, and we only collected a few weeks of data. But those few weeks showed a strange, tumbling object with no coma, an extreme elongated or pancake shape, and a slight non-gravitational acceleration, as if something gently pushed it. Scientists couldn't definitively explain that acceleration. No obvious gas emission was seen. That mystery is what led Loeb to propose it might have been a light sail, using sunlight as propulsion, or some thin artificial object. The community is still divided. Many think Oumuamua was a fragment of a tidal disruption or an exotic icy body, like nitrogen ice or hydrogen ice, that evaporated invisibly. We'll probably never know because it's long gone. Then came Borisov, 2I in 2019, which was much easier. It was discovered early, and it clearly looked and behaved like a normal comet. Lots of water vapor, familiar composition. It was basically a typical comet that just happened to come from another star. That reassured many scientists that interstellar objects can be mundane. Not everyone is weird. Borisov set a kind of baseline normal. Now 3I Atlas arrives, combining the weirdness of Oumuamua, big anomalies, with the activity of a comet. It's like the cosmos gave us something that straddles categories. Loeb cheekily remarked that 2I Borisov had debunked the idea that all interstellar comets are dark, stealthy, because Borisov was bright and normal, and then 3I Atlas violated expectations all over again by introducing new anomalies. It's almost as if, he suggests, the universe is testing our imagination, giving us one puzzle after another. He listed 8 anomalies for 3I Atlas. We covered most of them: alignment, anti-tail, mass, flybys, nickel, low water, polarization, wow signal. By contrast, Oumuamua had perhaps 2-3 big anomalies: shape, no coma, acceleration, and Borisov maybe 1, a lot of CO, but otherwise fine. So 3I's count is high. Some colleagues of Loeb muse that he's treating this a bit like a detective story, or even a teaching moment, a pedagogical exercise, as one of his papers put it. Even if it turns out natural, analyzing it through the lens of what if it's artificial forces us to think outside the box and be prepared for that scenario. And if nothing else, it spurs investment in the capabilities to not miss the next one. We should mention, beyond the scientific sphere, the public and media response has been significant. The idea of an alien spacecraft gets people excited, understandably. Some headlines have been sensational, calling 3I Atlas a potential alien mothership, speculating about it hiding behind the sun, etc.